Hello, Ma'am and Sir. Today I'm gonna talk about our research, which is entitled "The Perception of the Society Towards COVID-19 Survivors." The authors are Bagayaw Jessie Alexis, Bauing Valerie, Bugna Len Sheila, Busa Proclin, Kat Tegrena, Chaguna Jim Reeve, Kolong Lordjan, and Vital Richard. Moving on to our abstract. Coronavirus 2019 or COVID-19 outbreak has brought a great impact to the mental and physical health to every individual. In that case, the researcher intended to study the perception of the society on COVID-19 survivors. The study shows the perception of the community on COVID-19 survivors, the factor that contribute to the perception of the community, and the effect of the community perception on COVID-19 survivors. To find out the results of this study, a survey method was used and the researcher focused on Barangay Virac, Itogon, Benguet. A total of 53 respondents were randomly selected in the said barangay, and for the computation, the researchers used Yamane formula to consider the population of the study. In a brief introduction, coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 became an unexpected global outbreak and people are fighting an unseen enemy. Many people are infected with the virus. Some people survive while the others are unfortunate. COVID-19 is not that easy to cure and fight since some people are not trying to follow what are the rules, guide and regulations, or the safety and health protocols against COVID-19 pandemic that was implemented by the government. And that leads to the occurrence of negative comments and negative behavior by the community towards the COVID-19 survivor and to someone infected by the disease. In our theoretical framework, we use three theories. These are social acceptance and rejection theory. Second is behavioral theory, and the third one is connectivism theory. Social acceptance and rejection theory, it is a social behavior in which includes the degree to which an individual is actively brought into social interaction to the others. It may be individual or in group relationships. Just like today in COVID-19, we get this disease through interaction. The next theory is behavioral theory. This is the idea that may explain the human development that studies behavior. This emphasizes the study of observable behaviors, especially as they pertain to the process of learning. This also analyzes and antecedents and consequences present in the individual's environment and the learned association he or he has acquired. We use this theory because we want to know the perception of the community towards the COVID-19 survivor. And lastly is connectivism theory. This explains how internet technologies have created more opportunities for the people to learn and share information across the World Wide Web, and among them, social media is one of the platforms used by the people to gain more knowledge about certain things and to be updated on what is happening in the world or over a country. We use this theory through the use of internet or with the help of internet. With this theory, we apply the use of Google Form. Our research paradigm consists of input, process, and output. In input, which consists our SOP or statement of the problem, which I will be talking later, the process, and the output. We have three SOP or statement of the problem, and these are: first, what are the perception of the community toward COVID-19 survivors? Number two, what are the factors that contribute to the perception of the society to COVID-19 survivors? And third, what are the effects of the community's perception towards COVID-19 survivors? And here is our methodology. This study incorporated a quantitative research where descriptive design was used. It is descriptive in nature because the researchers describe the factors that contribute to the perception of the community on COVID-19 survivors and the effect of the community's perception towards COVID-19 survivors. This study was limited to the residents of Barangay Virac, Itogon, Benguet, which consists of 53 respondents. The researchers used the simple random method wherein they randomly selected the participants of this study. The researchers will use quantitative research approach in which the researchers prepare questionnaire, survey checklist in gathering the data. In addition, a guide questions will also be prepared for the interview. Moving on in the results and discussion. In the result in SOP1 or in our table 1, the overall mean is 2.23 and they are all disagree. Majority of the respondents disagreed on the statement identified to measure the perception of the community toward COVID-19 survivors. With the overall mean equivalent to this agreement, it simply means that the perception of the respondent towards the survivors is not prejudiced. Moving on to the table 2. The overall mean in our table 2 is 2.87, which they are all agree. The researchers show that the fear of being infected with COVID-19 got the highest mean. According to DM Shaw, COVID-19 is our visible enemy, changing our lives radically without ever revealing itself directly. We cannot see what we are battling for, so being afraid is normal, and it doesn't mean rejecting the COVID-19 survivor. The concern for their safety and concerned about security, equivalent to strongly agree. People are keeping distance and rarely talk to COVID-19 survivors because it is for their own safety and security. And lastly, our table 3, which, the overall is 3.05 and they are all agree. Looking at the results, all respondents express their agreement on all the statements. The effect of self-isolation on their safety has the highest mean. Self-isolation may have an advantage on both the survivor and community, but disadvantageous to the survivors. Moving on to conclusion and recommendation. Based on the findings, the following are conclusion of this research study. First is our SOP1, the perception of the community towards COVID-19 survivors. These are the feeling that community is mostly treating the COVID-19 survivors equally. Next, COVID-19 survivors will have a hard time adjusting in the community. The community is acknowledging that they are much likely safe even if the survivors are in the community. The community is not that frightened to approach a COVID-19 survivors. The rejection of the COVID-19 survivors from the community is most likely not considered. The interaction of the community to COVID-19 survivors is slightly not considered. The superiority of the community of being not infected of the virus is slightly variance. The community is not likely sympathize for treating someone who has COVID-19 as an outcast. These are our sample questions. And the conclusion in our SOP1 is, the researchers have concluded, basing from the data and analysis, that most of the variables mentioned in the questionnaires indicates that most of the respondents are disagreeing from the statement provided aside from the statement which states that treating COVID-19 survivors equally, which entails that respondents agrees on the idea of treating them equally. In addition, respondents have disagreed to the variable which states that people who have infected with the virus should be treated as an outcast. Moving on to the RSOP2, the factors that contribute to the perception of the society to the COVID-19 survivors. And our conclusions is, on the factors enumerated that contributes to the perception of society entails that most of the factors enumerated has affected the community's perception towards COVID-19 survivors, whereby the respondent disagreed with this two statement, which is the status of family, where the survivor belonged to, and the feeling of anxiousness when the person they knew is a COVID-19 survivor, where it does not affect their perception towards the COVID-19 survivor. Moving on to our SOP3, The effect of the community's perception towards COVID-19 survivors. And our conclusion is, the researchers have concluded, basing from the data and analysis about the variables mentioned in the questionnaires, indicates that most of the respondents agreed from the statement provided. The first statement has the highest mean, where it indicates that they prefer to isolate their own self just for them to be safe, and also for the safety of people around them. This entails that the effects of the community's perception toward COVID-19 survivors can lead to discrimination. And lastly, our recommendations. Based on the findings, the following are recommended. Barangay should provide seminars or webinars in their community regarding COVID-19 topics to broaden and boost their knowledge about it. Next, the barangay officials must implement barangay ordinances like anti-discrimination against COVID-19 survivors that can serve as the protection in the community. Third, future researchers may increase their sample size, including different barangays in different municipalities. Fourth is, future researchers may conduct data gathering through face-to-face or physical interaction if allowed to get more information from non-social media users. Next is, we should avoid generalizing all COVID-19 survivors as an outcast, as it would help them to adjust easier back to the community. Next, the community should not purely base their perception to the negative media presentation about the COVID-19 survivors. And lastly, people in the community should try to communicate with COVID-19 survivors so that they will not think they were just a toxic kind inside the community. And that's all, ma'am and sir. That's our research. Thank you.